everyone, so today I want to do a video about my best breastfeeding tips and advice. I just filmed a video about my breastfeeding story, so I will link that down below if you want to hear like a bit more background, but this really is just the tips that I've learned along the way. I have two boys and I ended up breastfeeding for a year each, so I feel like obviously was successful and I learned a lot along the way, so I would like to pass that on. I was feeling really apprehensive about doing a video about breastfeeding tips, but I just feel like if this video helps one person, then it was worth making. First tip, and probably the most important one, is make sure that your latch is correct. I didn't really know a lot about the latch. I just assumed breastfeeding was like a baby sucking that area, but I'll link a video down below. It's like an NHS video of how to latch correctly, and I watched it before I had a baby when I was pregnant, and I felt like it really did help me to get the latch correct. Basically, and this is obviously my like non-technical medical stuff, you want to put as much of your boob as you can in your baby's mouth. It's not just the nipple, like as much as you can get in it so that the baby is like biting down on your breast rather than sucking. If you see a sucking, you really don't want to see that. You want to see like a biting. If your nipple is rubbing against the top of their mouth, that is going to hurt you. Whereas if your nipple is sitting at the back of their throat, that is where you want it to be so that nothing's rubbing and the milk is going right into their mouth. I don't know if this is too TMI, but it's just the most important thing when you're breastfeeding. Second tip is to make sure you drink plenty of water. This is so important. It's important anyway because when you have a baby, if you drink water afterwards, like that is going to heal you. But drinking water when you're breastfeeding is so important because obviously you're not only like feeding yourself, you're now feeding this person all this liquid, so you need to drink all of it as much as you can. So also I buy big bottles of water, and I bought them when I was pregnant and I hid them around the house. Basically under the baby chair in his room I had about 6 bottles all lined up underneath, and then in our couch I used to hide them in the corners. My husband used to be like, what are you doing? Because I just know that if you've got a screaming baby and a toddler or whatever it is and you need to go sit and breastfeed, you don't really always have time to get a pint of water as well. There's not much you can do when you're breastfeeding. You can't get up and walk around. So I'd do that, and then when I did sit down to breastfeed, if I had forgotten to bring water, I could just then drink it, and I just always made sure that I was drinking when he was drinking. Important to keep up your food. I went from being someone who was so hungry when I was pregnant and hangry if I hadn't eaten, to this person who, as soon as I had the baby, my appetite sort of went. I wasn't bothered about food, and I don't know if it was because I was so tired or thinking about other things, but I just was not that bothered about food. And luckily my mum and husband were excellent in like getting food in and helping me in the early days. My mum was here for the first 3 weeks of both boys. When I was breastfeeding, she would always bring me like a drink and a snack, and she'd be like, you know, you look after him and I'll look after you. It's really important to have snacks in, get your husband to bring Danishes home and hot cross buns and, you know, fatty things to just get a bit more into you. Obviously you only need another 500 calories a day, but you do need another 500 calories a day. So don't overeat, but do eat enough for your baby. I also used to eat like a kind of like a fattier snack around 5 p.m. One midwife said to me that if you eat like a Danish or like something a little bit fatty around 5 p.m, that fat and will be in your night feed at 7. So it was a way of like sort of fattening up that milk for 7 o'clock. So the next tip is don't watch the clock. With my first son, I used to have all these like breastfeeding apps on my phone, and I used to like panic. I used to sit down to breastfeed and I'd like press them and check how many minutes he'd fed for and how many hours it'd been, and I'd be like, no, it's only been 2 hours, you're not ready for another feed. But then he maybe would be having a growth spurt or something. So I would say just don't watch the clock, because with my second son, I didn't really have time to watch the clock, so I just didn't. But it was so much easier. It was just kind of like I fed on demand in the early days, and I'd feed him and then I just would stop, and I wasn't stressing about it. One little tip that I found when I was breastfeeding, because for the larger breasted women out there, oh my god, this is all too TMI, but basically my boobs when I was pregnant, they were big, but when I was breastfeeding they were like another level huge. So they say that when you're 38 weeks pregnant, you go and get your chest measured and then get a size above that. But I did that and it was still not big enough. So anyway, they were huge. So nipple pads never really worked for me. They would slide around, and I had a few really embarrassing times where I was wearing grey. I love wearing grey. And the pad had like slipped, and then it was like this big black patch of wet. So it's just so embarrassing. One little tip in the end was if you buy the ultra thin sanitary towels, a big strip of glue at the back, you know, like the big sticky strip at the back, put that in your bra. They don't slide around, they're massive, nothing's going to get lost, they're really absorbent. It is just such a good tip for me. The third one is support. Support is so important in the way of like a breastfeeding pillow or a chair. Chair is like whatever kind of chair you have, you need a chair. When Fraser was born, we moved when he was 3 weeks old, and we moved to a new house. We had like no furniture sometimes when we were here. I used to use the stairs as like a place to breastfeed. Don't do that. Get a chair. Wherever you're going, you need to have a chair. You need a chair in the baby's room to breastfeed. There's lovely ones you can get out there. You don't really need a fancy one. I've got one from IKEA. I also had a breastfeeding pillow. I don't have it on me now. I gave it to my sister, but it's called the My Breast Friend pillow, and I just love the name as well. It's quite expensive. It was £45 from John Lewis, but it goes right around you, and when they're really tiny, I found it quite helpful to support them in, gets them to the exact right place they need to be, and I really loved having that. But I also took supplements. I took the Vita Bionics Pregnant Care supplements. I took the pregnant care supplements throughout my pregnancy, and then I took the breastfeeding ones for when I was breastfeeding. So I haven't got any on me now because I stopped breastfeeding, but I'll show you a picture. Got omega-3 in them and all good stuff for your baby and for your milk. So I would definitely recommend taking that as well. Also, buy nice bras. Breastfeeding is so like frumpy, like all the maternity bras you get are really unattractive, and you feel like bleh anyway after you've had a baby. Like the last thing you need is to also look like your lingerie is gross and that you're a cow because you're being milked. Elle MacPhearson do really nice bras, Figleaves do really nice bras, H&M do really nice maternity bras for like a bit of a lower end. So I would say like treat yourself. You're saving all this money on formula, get some nice breastfeeding bras. What I really wanted to say is to relax. Now that is easier said than done, but it is just so important for you to relax. Like if you're breastfeeding, like try not to like worry about work or argue with your husband, or just as much as you can relax, just do, because it really does help with the milk flow. I know that some people would say a really big tip is to express, but I can't say much on that because I never really got on with expressing. I had an amazing expressor. It was the Avent electrical expressing machine thing, and it was really, really good, but I just never got the hang of it. We were living in a building site the first time, and the second time I had a toddler, so I never really got around it. I just completely breastfed. How you know that your baby is getting enough is, you know, if they're putting on weight, they're thriving, they're looking full after you've breastfed, like, you know, the whole milk drunk thing, they're pretty satisfied. Pooing twice a day, normally that beautiful yellow stuff in the early days. Yeah, as long as all those things are happening and they're content, like, you know, they're not screaming all the time, you can feel, you know, good that obviously they're getting enough, because obviously with breastfeeding you don't know how much they're getting, but as long as they're putting on weight and seeming like they're satisfied, then you're doing great. So yes, I hope these tips were useful. I know there's loads of other tips out there, but these were just my tips. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe if you want any other like mummy and beauty and stuff videos, and I'll see you all soon. Oh, I feel like this was all a bit like TMI. I don't know if I should have done that video. Oh well.